puberty is unkind to most people, but it hit doubly hard for me. Growing pains hit in every joint. My chest hurt, my voice broke, things dropped and jumped back up again. Hair grew on my face and other strange places, but would pivot and disappear, only to come back 3 months later. While my parents ran around like headless chickens in the background, Lavender calmly noticed my changes and, ever the professional mentor and caregiver, began teaching me how to be a proper O'Reilly woman.
Susie, that bra I gave you is too big. Did you lose weight again? You gotta wear it, or boys will stare at you and God will hate you. Susie, did you gain weight in your shoulders again? Ma will be mad if you gain weight, so don't tell her I brought you chocolate. It always helps to have chocolate at that time of the month. Susie, girls don't have hair on their faces. Be sure to shave better so you look like me.
She would rub my hand against her smooth cheek, grinning that O'Reilly grin.
See, Susie? Like me.
After too many doctor's visits, my parents and I learned the words bi-directional intersex, and we learned that I was the only human in existence to be one. The doctor suggested that I be admitted into a hospital, that being under the eye of doctors and scientists would be, quote,
what's best for Susie and for humanity as a whole.
My father, who always saw anger as more honorable than sadness, screamed himself hoarse that I wasn't some frog to be dissected by medical students. I was an O'Reilly, and certainly there could be a treatment. Money was thrown at the problem. We tried hormones to keep my body from going too much in one direction or too much in another, but my body rejected them outright. 3 months came by as a female, until they waned into 3 months as a male, until the cycle would continue with or without the world's consent or understanding. Surgeries were proposed. Would it be easier for me to be a son or a daughter? Could I be the spare son my dad needed after the loss of my brother Junior? What if it came out that I, as in he, had a surgery to make things right? On the other hand, would any man of high standing, let alone the president or a governor or a senator, want to wake up next to a hairy man every 3 months? This flexibility was tarnished when I made the mistake, not realizing it was a mistake, of mentioning that I didn't like men and that I preferred girls. Late at night, I could hear my father sob.
Why, God, why are we so cursed? Why was it Junior? Why'd he take Junior? Why'd he take him?
My place on the back burner was boiling over and sending electric sparks all over the stove. It affected my siblings. Lavender's condition needed more attention than anybody could give while fretting over me. Jackson's future could be jeopardized by my existence. And would anyone want to marry Katz or Muriel if they knew my disease was swimming around in their DNA? But none of my siblings saw things from that angle. To them, I was just Susie, and I was how I was, and so what? Through phone calls and a dense web of connections, my father found a convent in the middle of nowhere, back in the motherland, where nobody would talk. My parents were sure to send me off while most of my siblings were off at boarding school. Lavender saw me packing my bags and, once again, ever the professional, packed hers too. It broke her heart when my mom stopped her from getting into the car with me as we left Linebrook. Her cries break my heart to this very day. The convent, in the middle of Nowhere Island, was a 2-day drive in any direction, to any town. The nuns got most of their supplies from the land around them, with mail being delivered only once every 2 weeks. It was in that patch of nowhere that I was no longer Susan Josephine O'Reilly. I was officially, "You there!" And the peak of conversation was my list of to-dos.
You dare pull the weeds.
After a small but significant war with English ivy, I could pull those weeds better than anybody could.
You dare plant the onions.
After a few failed crops, I could grow onions larger than anybody could.
You dare muck the stables.
You could perform surgery on the floors of those stables once I finally learned how to not fling horse shit at touring cardinals from the Vatican.
You dare peel the tato.
You'd have a better chance of winning the lottery before you'd find a scrap of skin on those potatoes. That's only after Mother Mary gave me my 100th fussing.
You dare pay the farrier.
And, that was apparently my dad's money. Nonetheless, it was a jarring culture shock from the pampered life I once knew. The highest point of those 7 years were letters from home. Some from Ma, some from Dad, quite a few from Jackson detailing his upward trajectory through life, just as many from Kat, which often contained clipped articles from magazines and newspapers. Muriel would send books and requested just as many since, quote, "You're where all the good stuff is." And then there was Lavender, the one who wrote the most, half misspelled, but entirely overflowing with grief and affection. The lag between her messages and my replies was causing quite a bit of frustration.
Susie, it's extremely rude of you to not reply to my letters in a timely fashion. A good O'Reilly is always on time. You know that. Ma would say for me to not send you any chocolates as a punishment, but I know that you will need them in a week or so. Have you been shaving? Are you praying your rosary? The Old English didn't kidnap you, did they? Tell them to fix their rhymes if they do. I love you tons. Lavi.
The chocolates she sent would be melted or stale by the time I got them, but I savored them nonetheless as I read the books Muriel sent, bookmarked by Jackson's pictures, while I was watched over by Kat's magazine clippings pinned on my wall around my crucifix. Eventually, I grew used to the changes my body would push on me. I stopped counting time in intervals of 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. But by the time between farrier visits, between letters from home, from mare to fowl, goat to kid, along crop harvests, between green onion and over to tomato, over to potato, back to green onion, and by spring, green peas, leeks, kale, and Mother Superior Mary's colcannon. My return to newest England broke me out of that cycle. It seemed out of nowhere that my dad showed up, this time with a fine mahogany and silver walking stick. He had come to collect me. I was worried that somebody had died. It had been so long since I saw anybody from back home.
Pack your things, Susie. Your brother Jackson wants you at his senatorial election party back in Linebrook.
And boy, had things changed while I was away.
Hey, y'all, it's Marsha O'Hare with Nightmare Public Broadcasting, here to say those what if videos on YouTube are just fan fictions written in the style of Wikipedia. And yes, I've made that joke before, but it's true. Also, thank goodness I get to have my southern accent again. Fighting it for 8 minutes straight is very difficult. But I do it for my 1-year club. Zemo, Rocco, Lagasamancer, Ayafika, Yokothul, Sam Myers, Jackson Daniel 42, and Man of Many Bees. Meanwhile, I'm giving a side dish of thanks to Cirrus Daydreams, Darkwood, Baroni 152, Brian Adamson, Brace_Q, and Killian G. Whew, buddy. I'm so tired. Oh, if only I had health insurance so I could go see a doctor about this constant fatigue. What's that, Pippin the Pomeranian puppy dog? I have health insurance. And my copay's still out the ass? Wow, that sucks! But what doesn't suck is becoming a patron over at patreon.com/belladonna ASMR, where you will get all sorts of content early, as well as quite the backlog to keep you busy while the world burns. Now, y'all stay safe out there for me. Bye! What's that, Pippin? Coffee is not a replacement for food and sustenance and overall health? Aw, Pippin, what do you know? Except everything. I love you, puppy.